Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you are tuning in. This is Unapologetically Me featuring me. No special guest, just me. Forgot my intro last time. I don't know if you guys missed it or not. Maybe we should just cut it out completely. I hope you guys are ready because we're going to dig deep into some of the inconsistencies in the Tamla Horsford case. First and foremost, you guys have to understand that I listen to every single interview performed by the Forsyth County Police Department, as well as all of the second interviews that were performed a year later by the GBI. Well over 24 hours worth of interviews, and I've done my best to make notes of all of the inconsistencies, but what's my favorite phrase? I'm not a robot, right? I'm a human being, just like you. I make mistakes, and sometimes I may miss things. So if I miss anything, please know that you can always feel free to comment anything that would help add to the case. What is more important than me being right is that the truth and the facts are out there about every case. So don't ever feel like you can't call me out on something if I got it wrong. If you know for a fact that I messed something up that's detrimental to the truth, then please comment that. So we're gonna start with the autopsy, like I promised, because it's gonna blow your mind. Then we're gonna go into all of the other inconsistencies, and we're even gonna go into some rumors, because some of these rumors are very coincidental. And you guys know how I feel about coincidences, especially when it comes to criminal cases. There aren't any, they're just red flags. So the main injuries that were noted in the original autopsy leading to Tamla's cause of death were severe injuries of the head, neck, and torso. She had a subarachnoid and a subdural hemorrhage and a fracture of the second vertebrae, or the C2. She had a lacerated right heart ventricle and a dislocated wrist. She also had several superficial abrasions on the forehead, above her left eyelid. On the bridge of her nose, she had a bruise, and her right temple and her chin. There were also several spots of bleeding from the head that were noted. There was no SA kit done, nor were there any fingernail scrapings or clippings done for DNA testing. The main injuries that were noted in the second or independent autopsy leading to Tamla's cause of death were a bit different. The biggest difference was what they didn't note, such as no findings of a spinal fracture and no evidence of any significant injury to the skull or bones within the head, and this would include any facial fractures. Now, the original autopsy did note that there were no facial fractures. It specifically noted that the bones in the nose and face were intact. As for the dislocated wrist that the first autopsy noted, well, the second autopsy showed much more than a dislocation. There was actually a compound Smith fracture of the right wrist. Compound meaning one of the bones in the wrist was actually protruding through her skin. Now, I'm sure many of you watching have had a compound fracture. As you can see, it's in this photo. You can see the bone sticking out in this photo. If many of you have ever had a compound fracture, it bleeds, right? So what's missing from this photo is the amount of blood that we would see in a compound fracture, indicating, according to the second doctor who did the autopsy, Dr. Shaker, he feels that the wrist was broken post-mortem, and that the cut on her other wrist was also probable to have occurred post-mortem as well. The blood that was on her left sleeve was also said to be inconsistent with her still being alive when it happened. So the blood wasn't pumping. It was simply whatever blood was left in the area that came out, but it wasn't pumping, so nothing was really bleeding. Now, this is the opinion of the doctor, Dr. Shaker, who performed the second autopsy, as well as the family's lawyer, Ralph Fernandez. And Ralph Fernandez has been going through everything about this case with a fine-tooth comb, and he has many issues with the way it's been handled, and he's also convinced that her manner of death is homicide. The deputies on the scene, including Michael Christian, the lead investigator, all were confused by the position in which Tamla's body was found. When first seeing Tamla, Mike Christian reportedly said, quote, "The position of the body does not appear that she fell from the balcony, rather ground level." It has even been said by sources that to this very day, Mike Christian still doesn't believe that Tamla fell from the balcony. And he's also allegedly told people that he knows that her body was moved. A woman by the name of Mandy came forward and told the GBI that Mike Christian was actually on the phone with her when he got the call, and that he sent her pictures of the crime scene as the morning unfolded. She said that he was obsessed with the Tamla Horsford case and that he had horrible anxiety from it and had to go on blood pressure medication because of all the stress that he felt from this case. Now, keep in mind, the case was closed. So he's having stress on a closed case. I mean, maybe the stress came when the GBI reopened it, but either way, she also told the GBI that Mike Christian only ever referred to Tamla Horsford as the porch lady. Other deputies on the scene the day of said, quote, "It doesn't make sense. It's kind of like a nosedive, like she did a nosedive." And there was talk of a deputy by the name of Corey Miller, who was also rumored to be close friends with John Myers, though she denies it. She even acts like she doesn't know his name. But anyway, that he took Tamla's pulse, and maybe that's how her arm ended up bent upward, when everybody swore that both arms were down and hands were palms up. But a deputy would know not to move a body at a possible crime scene, wouldn't he? Standard protocol for this type of death is to treat it as a crime scene until homicide can be ruled out. Another thing we don't have in this case, post-mortem photos. If you talk to any prosecutor, they would tell you that a normal amount of photos for a potential crime scene would be about 100 to even 200 photos. And this is because once the body is removed from the location and it's released, the location's released back to the public, you can't go back and gather any evidence. So you have to do it right the first time. So always better to take as many photos as you possibly can. Guess how many photos were taken in the Tamla Horsford case? 5. 5 total photos of the body. This is unheard of. And Ralph Fernandez has said that to only have 5 photos suggests that someone told them to only take those 5 specific photos. In his professional opinion, this was purposely done. The medical examiner did not take any photos of the body during the autopsy showing any of these cuts and abrasions that she had all over her body. From the measurements, though, they sound a lot like defensive wounds, not just minor scrapes. Defensive wounds indicating she was in some sort of altercation. Without photos, we cannot say either way. We know that the injuries were there because they were noted in the original autopsy, but we have no visual. Neither Jose Barrera nor Tom Smith were interviewed formally after the incident. They were both there, but they weren't interviewed. This is unheard of as well. Since when do they only interview some of the people that are at the scene of a possible homicide? Only the women were interviewed, and all were asked whether or not they smoked cigarettes, and they all said no. Why is this important? It was said by a few women that Tamla was never outside alone. Anytime she went out to have a cigarette, there were other people out there with her. Yet no one could really verify who was out there with her every single time. It was said that Madeline went out with her once, and Bridget went out with her once, but Tamla had gone outside several times to smoke throughout the night, according to all accounts, and from their own admission, she was never out there alone until she went out at that 1:49 a.m. after everyone had allegedly gone to sleep or left. The thing is, there were 2 brands of cigarette butts that were left there from that night. And this was actually noticed by Tamla's father when he was shown photos of the scene that they did have. This obviously indicated that there were 2 smokers present at the party. Not only that, but it had been talked about that Tamla only smoked when she drank, and that she was not the only one who did this. So either one of the women are lying and they actually did smoke, or those cigarettes belong to one of the only other 2 people that were there but were not interviewed, Jose and Tom. Though a year later, the GBI did question Tom and Jose, and both denied being smokers. I can find things in every single one of the women's first interviews from the party that are just flat out shady. From ridiculous and rude or insensitive comments, laughing, joking with the men interviewing them. None of them seemed upset by this at all, with the exception of Stacy. She did break down a bit during her interview. Some even talked about Tamla in a very condescending manner, and I think I mentioned this in part 1. I almost feel like if you put all these ladies in a room together and listen to them, they would sound like the cast of Mean Girls, only in their 40s. Of the 12 people questioned, there were 12 different stories of what went down that night. They were all drinking. Maybe that's why no one really focuses on what's going on besides their own circle when they're drinking. But what's kind of weird is that there were certain statements that were almost verbatim. One of these statements was the statement of the position that Tamla's body was found in when first discovered, which we've already talked about a bunch, that it was unnatural, face down, palms up, as well as the phrases, "it's burned in my mind," and "you can't forget it." These were said by everyone. Another phrase commonly used in these interviews by everyone was, quote, "she was really excited about this tequila that was imported from Mexico." Every single woman said that exact same sentence in their story of what happened. Funny, not everyone actually saw her drinking it. And there are no photos or videos taken of Tamla where you can even see a drink in her hand. Whereas the other ladies, you can see drinks in their hands, you can see drinks right in front of them. Tamla, there is actually no visual evidence that she ever drank. Interesting. And don't forget, she never once appeared intoxicated, only happy. Another verbatim word used to describe Tamla that night. The only one who said that Tamla was drinking something other than tequila was Madeline, and she said Tam was drinking the vodka that she brought. Maybe because it was clear she didn't know that it was tequila, maybe she didn't read the bottle, maybe she just wasn't paying attention. John did call Madeline, aka Aunt Modi, a burned out hippie, though she said that she went to bed that night early because she was so stoned from the pot she smoked with Tamla. Another consistent part of these interviews was that the guys were downstairs and out of the way the whole night, watching the football game in the theater room. Now, those words, "out of the way," were used by everyone. But it came out in the interviews that they came up to get ice at some point, and some people said that they went downstairs, some people said that they didn't. Most people said they had no idea whether they went back down or they didn't. They were up for happy birthday and cake at halftime. After halftime, they stayed upstairs with the women, playing Cards Against Humanity with them and hanging out on the back deck. Now, I'm no math whiz, but halftime was confirmed to be at about 9:30 p.m. that night, and they all said they went up to bed at 1:30 a.m. So that means that from 9:30 until 1:30 a.m., the guys were with the girls. 4 hours of the 6-hour-long party, the guys were actually not down in the basement, out of the way, right? The party was set to begin at 7 p.m. Most people had arrived by 7:30 p.m. Tamla arrived at 8:30, and the guys were upstairs by 9:30. Halftime, right? They never went back downstairs because they played Cards Against Humanity right after that, and there is video of at least Jose on the couch playing with them. So in actuality, the guys were partying with the women most of the night. They only stayed out of the way for 2 hours. Many of the women brought up how Tam was the life of the party. That's another verbatim. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you know what I mean? They all said those exact same words. They worded it the same. And that she was so fun, and that she even got a bit touchy-feely from the alcohol. There were a few women who made sure to say that in their interview. Now, Tom was interviewed by the GBI as well, and he had some very sweet things to say about Tamla as well. I may even go so far as to say he may have been a bit sweet on her. Did Stacey know this or suspect this? This is all alleged. It's my opinion. Was Tamla maybe touchy-feely with Tom at the party like she was with the other women? And I don't mean like inappropriately. I just mean like, oh, Tom, you know, like, or touching his arm or something, and maybe that didn't sit right with Stacey or someone else who maybe brought it to Stacey's attention. Tom did say in his interview that he talked with Tamla out on the deck that night. He said that Tamla was really into football and sports and that she would talk about anything anyone wanted to talk about. She was a very sweet lady. She would do anything for anyone. And he stuttered a lot when he was saying these things. Tom arrived at the party at 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. Same time as Tamla, pretty much. Coincidence? I wonder whose idea it was to stay upstairs with the ladies. Jose stayed inside on the couch, but Tom was outside talking to Tamla. Tom also was the only person to say that one or two of the other ladies smoked when they drank too, just like Tam. Ladies or Tom himself? Stacey said she hated smoking. Was it a secret that he smoked? Or did she hate smoking because Tom smoked? Stacey said that Tom was the main one that insisted that Tamla did not drive home, even though Tamla did not appear intoxicated to anyone. During Bridget's interview, she said that Stacey went up to bed, and then she said with Tom, like she added with Tom in after a pause. So she said, so-and-so went to bed, Stacey went up to bed with Tom. It was like that. It's just it was just something I made note of. Did Tom go up to bed with his wife Stacey? Or did he stay downstairs with Tamla, maybe convincing her not to leave for a bit longer? Maybe he wanted to talk about Stacey with Tamla because she would talk about anything. Everyone, including Tom, said that Bridget was the last one awake with Tamla, including Bridget herself. Bridget also said a few other things and made it clear that she was very protective over the people that she actually trusted, which was not many, but Jean was among the very few. Protective enough to lie for her? Bridget also said that Tamla was a bit much for her that night. Bridget wasn't really comfortable with people, especially strangers. She had only known Jean and Stacey before that night. We talked about the necklace that Bridget wore with the Xanax around her neck, and even though she tried to deny it, she was busted out. She gave out Xanax to her friends. She also gave out Klonopin, and in fact, Bridget was a Xanax pharmacy. She had all types of doses in all colors, shapes, and sizes: white, peach, greenish blue. She even had bars. During her interview, she said she never noticed Tam take anything or, quote, put anything in her drink, unquote. Excuse me, what? Why would anyone put anything in their own drink? Why would someone take a pill and put it in their own drink? Wouldn't they just take the pill with their drink? Why would you put a pill? Why would Bridget say this? Did she put something in Tamla's drink? Did she think maybe someone else put something in Tamla's drink? Did she know someone else put something in Tamla's drink? Did that unmetabolized Xanax that was taken minutes before Tamla's death, combined with her 0.24 blood alcohol content, kill her? Or maybe, as Bridget said, it wasn't put in Tamla's drink. Maybe it was put in the bowl of gumbo that Tamla was eating out of minutes before she died. Bridget did tell the GBI that she made sure to tell Tamla to go back inside and finish her gumbo. It was the mom in her. Bridget was super zanned out during her interview and just babbled on and on and on how her husband was actually pissed off that he had to come get her that night because she had planned to stay there that night. Quote, "My husband loves me, but sometimes he just has enough of me, you know?" Unquote. She also made this comment, quote, "I know what they say about me, that I can't get my story straight." Unquote. Bridget, honey, do tell. What story? Aren't you supposed to be telling the truth? What story Can't you get straight? Bridget and Jean both say the exact same thing during questioning too. Bridget thinks extremely highly of herself, I will tell you, and while tooting her own horn constantly throughout her interview, she says, quote, "I'm the mother hen. I'm the perfect friend to have at a party. I clean up after everyone," unquote. Jean's went like this, quote, "Bridget is like the mother hen. She's the perfect friend to have at a party. She'll clean so she doesn't have to talk to anyone," unquote. I would also like to know when the door alert signified that Bridget left, opening and closing. We don't have this actually marked down. It's just was said that she left at 1:47, so we don't have a time for that on paper. But I would assume the police do, and that it must match up with what Bridget said. You know how I feel about that at this point. Gary, Bridget's husband, was also questioned by the GBI a year later, and he said that he picked Bridget up at 1:45 a.m. He said that he texted her, quote, "Let's go, I'm here," unquote. And they did have a copy of that text message. He also said that he didn't see anyone with Bridget when she came out, which is a little inconsistent with what Bridget said, which was that Tamla walked her to the door and she told Tamla to go back inside and finish her gumbo, which I take to mean Tamla not only walked her to the door, but walked her out the door. So you would think Gary would have seen her walking Bridget out and giving her a hug, as Bridget would say in her interview. Gary did specify that he didn't see that he was at the end of the driveway. But as you can see by this photo, you can actually see the front door better from the end of the driveway, and that's the door they supposedly walked out of. So unfortunately, we need to speculate there. Either way, that leaves 45 minutes that Bridget and Tamla were alone together. Another door that I didn't bring up in the first video that we do have record of opening and closing is the garage door. The garage door did some interesting shit too. Opening and closing at 1:30 a.m. and then opening again at 1:40 a.m. Well, that couldn't have been Bridget though, because she said she left out the front door, and Gary said this as well at 1:47 a.m. What's the deal with the garage door? Who went in and out of that pretty much at the same time Bridget was leaving, if it wasn't Bridget? Jose was the second to last person to see Tam alive when he said he saw her in the kitchen on his way to get his charger from the basement. He never said anything about speaking to her, just that he saw her. Jean, of course, confirmed this, and she said that he made it up and down 2 flights of stairs in record time. Dang, Jose, why the rush? Must have been the sex that Sugar Mama was waiting for, because Jean said that they actually didn't go straight to bed as she originally told investigators. She told the GBI they had relations first, but that after that, neither one of them left the bedroom until Madeline knocked on the door at about 9 a.m. This is something else that the police may have, but we don't. And if I felt that I could trust the police in this case, I would believe that they do have this information and that it checks out. But I don't trust police in this case, and I don't even trust that they asked these questions, because I never heard them asked in any interview that I listened to. Remember, Jose was never formally questioned immediately following the incident. He was only asked some questions briefly for the incident report. And even in his answers on that, there were inconsistencies, including the time that he last saw Tamla and the time that he discovered her body. Jose Barrera was fired for using his privilege of position to look into the case. It had been said that he was just curious, but nobody seemed to care that much about Tamla, so I can't understand why he would even care if he had nothing to do with it. Or if he wasn't trying to see if anyone was looking at him as a possible suspect. Or maybe he was checking up for someone else. That, of course, is complete speculation and my opinion. The rest of the people in the home that morning were Madeline, who was staying in a downstairs ground level apartment. She's the one who saw Tamla first on the ground outside, not moving. Allegedly. Because Jose also said he discovered the body. Then we have Stacy and Tom, we have Jean, we have Paula, and we have Jen. And Jen was the one who was really drunk and had to be put to bed by Marcy. And it was originally said that Jen only woke up after the commotion of people running around after Tam had been found. But in reality, Jen said that she woke up at 7:30 and called her husband to come get her. Paula left at 7:30 a.m. and Stacy and Tom left around 8 to 8:30 a.m. And this was verified by a neighbor. Madeline said that she found Tamla around 9 a.m., but it was actually reported as 8:45 a.m. Madeline also, for some reason, only wanted to speak to Jose. It was only after Jean was insisting that it was her home and she needed to know what was going on that Madeline blurted it out. It could be because Madeline felt that Jose, working in criminal justice, might be the one to consult about this. It could be that because he was the only man left in the house, that she wanted him to go check on it before she worried her niece. Either way, if this occurred, the wasting of time that Madeline exercised after finding Tamla's body is just ridiculous, for lack of a better word. She didn't handle that properly at all. And the only reason that I can think of in this case is that she didn't know Tamla and that she was weirded out by everything, and that would actually be giving her the benefit of the doubt. But it kind of makes me question, especially with Jose saying, he only touched those cigarette butts in that lighter because he didn't know what he was walking into, when Madeline had already told him, I thought. So maybe Jose is the one who actually found her first. I don't know. Or maybe he saw her even before Madeline came up and told them. So let's talk a little bit more about Bridget and Madeline. The last person to see her alive being Bridget, and the first person to see her deceased, allegedly, being Madeline. What was their connection to Tamla during the evening? How did their interactions go? Well, Madeline had a great time smoking marijuana with Tamla, and then, according to Jean, was a little too stoned and headed off to bed around 10. Bridget said in her interview that she didn't like Tamla, yet she spent quite a bit of time with her alone. And on the contrary, according to Bridget, Tamla just loved her and told her so multiple times. Stacy and Tom left at the same time, pretty much, that Madeline discovers Tamla's body. Paula left shortly before them, and Jen was texting the shit out of her husband about when he would be there and should she go outside yet, all the way up until the police got there. And the GBI has these texts. In fact, I don't even think she realized what it looked like. That it looked like she was like, where are you? Come on, hurry up, get here. Until she started reading them off to the GBI. Paula and Jean were best friends. Paula's interview was very sus. She was laughing and joking pretty much the entire time. She was very flirty with the investigators, except when she talked about text messages. This was about the only time she got really serious. When talking to GBI, she actually almost started crying when she realized that they were going to be able to find even deleted messages. And it's also been said that Paula was staying in the bedroom next to Stacy and that they had texted each other that night. What were they texting about? Why would Stacy be texting Paula with her husband? I mean, not that people don't do that, but maybe Stacy was texting Paula, freaking Tom is still downstairs, Who knows? Allegedly, speculation and all that. And I just want to say, before we go any further, that there's a channel that is just about this investigation, and it's called Justice for Tamla Horsford, Forsyth Exposed. And that is where I got to basically binge all of the interviews. I'll try to remember to put the link in the description box, but this channel has over 50 videos, I think, just on this case. And that's where I was, like I said, that's where I was able to find all the interviews in one place, so I could kind of just binge them. There were also interviews on there that I couldn't find anywhere else. So I want to wrap this up now, but I don't want to leave anything important out. So let's go into a couple theories, and then I'll give my opinion, and I'll see if anything comes up that I can clarify more. Occam's razor, of course, would be that Tamla simply drank too much. Her blood alcohol content was high enough that in many people it can cause blackouts vomiting, loss of balance, passing out. She also had Xanax in her system, and Xanax can do the same, especially on top of alcohol. So Tamla goes out to the balcony for one last cigarette, like she said, before bed. The Xanax hits her. She gets dizzy, maybe a little nauseous. She bends over the railing and she falls, and the injuries that she sustains in that fall are what killed her. The autopsy did have a hefty list of serious injuries, but no facial fracture or even a bloody nose from falling flat on her face. And the leaning over the railing to vomit theory, as some people talked about, because there was a substance in the grass that was unidentified yet never tested. It was, I think they said, sent for destruction or something. What? Because there was no vomit in her esophagus. There was nothing in her mouth. So if someone had vomited there, it wasn't Tamla's. So that's not even written here, but I remember this as I'm speaking. So that's what I was saying. Maybe I remember more. That's really sus. So, okay, there's 3 theories on a manner of death: accident, homicide, or unaliving, right? Jose suggested this unaliving during the 911 call when talked about a cut on Tamla's wrist, which was actually a compound fracture. And Bridget also suggested this in her interview when she was telling Mike Christian, quote, "The propane tank over by the railing, I don't know why that was there. I don't know what would have possessed her to use that as a step stool." But before she could finish, she was cut off by Mike Christian. I mean, what a fucked up, weird thing to say. Insinuating that she used the propane tank to step up on to jump to her death. Who's gonna try to unalive themselves on a 14-foot balcony? But to all accounts, including Jose and Bridget's, Tamla was so happy and excited the whole night, and she was especially excited about becoming a grandma. So I personally am ruling out unaliving. That woman was far as fuck from being suicidal. That's my opinion. Homicide theories here are endless. I have days and days of theories of how and why she could have been murdered. What I likely think happened, though, is that she OD'd and they covered it up. And that would be because if she OD'd, I believe that it was the Xanax that caused it. So whoever slipped her that Xan is possibly the one who caused her death. Maybe it was Bridget to get her to calm down and go to bed. Maybe it was Tom to take advantage of her. Did the Xanax not work or kick in quickly enough and she got into an altercation with someone? Did Stacy drug her with a Xanax she got from Bridget so that she'd stop flirting with her husband? One thing I don't believe is that Tamla took that pill herself. That Xanax had to have been slipped to her. That is my opinion, but that's how I feel. Unless Bridget talked her into taking one so that maybe she could go to sleep quicker so that when she woke up, she could just drive home. I don't know. Maybe they find her unresponsive in the early morning hours when Madeline said she thought Tom and Stacy actually left. Because I don't consider 8:30 early morning hours. I mean, that's standard wake-up time, if not even a little late. Throw her off the balcony, like Mike Christian asked Jose if he did. That was something else. He asked everybody else, did you push Tamla off the balcony? With Jose, he said, did you throw Tamla off the balcony? Why? Why did he ask that differently? Is it because Jose is not white? Or is it because he thought something or knew something? Who knows? Did they stage the body to make it look like a face plant? Which is why that's how they remembered her, because that's the way they placed her. Then go back to bed and wait for someone to find her? Maybe even specifically Aunt Modi, Madeline? Then they all played dumb? What do you think happened? I think there needs to be a third autopsy by another unbiased doctor. The two that we have are so different. I would even say drastically different. The main issue with all of this, though, is the evidence that was never originally gathered. The 2 years that went by, giving these people time to clear their phones, get new ones, and come up with the same story of what happened, which they still couldn't manage to do. But there are still so many more inconsistencies that I could talk for hours about. The ones that I did bring up are the ones that I felt are the most coincidental. As always, I'm always willing to go deeper if you guys want, but this was a lot. So let me know what you think in the comments. In watching one of the videos taken that night of them singing happy birthday to Jean, I noticed that there's only 7 women in that video, and both men. Madeline, Jean, Sarah, Jen, Tamla, Stacy, and I think it's Marcy. So where are the other 3 women? The first to leave were Nicole and Sarah. Both Tom and Jose are there in the kitchen, and I really wish I could see what time it is on that microwave and oven. It was said that Nicole and Sarah waited for Paula to arrive at the party to sing, and that Paula arrived at 10 p.m. So they waited for her so that everybody who attended could sing Jean happy birthday. So where are the rest of them? With the exception of the person taking the video, they're still missing people. Sarah and Nicole left after that at around 10:30. Nicole said that she even called Sarah that night to see if she made it home, but Sarah doesn't mention Nicole at all in her interview. Also, Nicole said that she was there when Tam called her daughter on FaceTime, but that FaceTime call was made at 12:42 a.m. So I added this as I was watching the edited version of the part 1. So I added this, and I just want to say it real quickly before I jump off of here. But so this is what I put. As I'm sitting here watching part 1 and making sure it's edited properly, I noticed something. I'm wondering if at 1:57 a.m., when Tamla goes out to have that last cigarette before bed, Tamla feels that Xanax hit her. And because she's not used to taking Xanax, and she's drank quite a bit of tequila, it hits her like a ton of bricks. She stumbles in, barely shutting the door, which is why it doesn't latch and report to close, because everyone said that the door looked closed, but it wasn't latched. So it was closed, but it hadn't latched, which is why it hadn't said that the door was closed. It didn't register. So she stumbles in, falls flat on her face on that floor, hands down to her side, palms up. That would make sense with why everybody says it is burned in their brain that she looked like that when they saw her for the first time. She was face down, palms up. They never really say in the grass, ever. They just say face down, palms up. The time was set to change at 2 a.m. 3 minutes after the door was opened for Tam to come inside. That means that the next door that opened at 4:10 a.m. was 3 hours later. 2 a.m. would then become 1 a.m. Right? Does the Xfinity alarm system immediately reset like an iPhone would? Or is there an inconsistency in time? Now, I looked that up and there is. It did not automatically reprogram. So it is possible that these timelines don't add up. And we have the question of, do we know this for sure? And I don't, it's never been said that we do. I mean, they want us to believe that they do, but it's just, there's so many unanswered questions here, which is why I don't understand how they can close a case. Regardless of that, if Marcy had gone to leave and saw Tam on the hardwood floor, then somewhere between 1 a.m. new time and 4:10 a.m. is where this cover-up began. They may very well have thought she was dead. They did not call 911. They did not try CPR. Instead, they began to cover their asses. This is just a theory, but I believe it's a theory that makes sense. Marcy gets the hell out of there. She has nothing to do with any of it, and the remaining people spend the rest of the early morning hours coming up with a plan. When Madeline goes to wake Jose, they probably are in the shower, cleaning up. They could be. Even Tom and Stacy both said that when they received Jean's call to come back, they had just got done cleaning up. Those exact words. Marcy also went home to take a shower. From Jen's text messages, she seems to want to hurry up and get the fuck out of there before the cops come. I don't think she was supposed to be there when the police arrived. I don't think that was part of the plan. I don't think anyone was supposed to be there when the police arrived, except for the 3 that actually lived there. Jean, Jose, and Madeline. And actually, Jose didn't live there, but I don't think it was the plan for anyone else to be there that didn't live there besides Jose. And this is the reason. I believe Jen and Tamla may have gotten into it. that night. I believe Jen was really fucked up and tried to get into it with Tamla. Whether it was over Cards Against Humanity and some ignorant comment that may have been said, or drunken bullshit coming out of her mouth, I don't know. I think something happened between them. Leander has hinted to this as well, based off of a video that he saw taken at the party. And the person that he's talking about, that Tamla's talking to in this video, where he sees some distress in his wife's face, is Jen. Bridget said it was one of the main reasons she wanted to leave. And Jean, Jose, and Stacy were upstairs talking to Paula about what happened before they went to bed. They said this to the GBI. Bridget was downstairs talking to Tamla about it, and Bridget was very upset. Was Tamla upset about it as well? Did Bridget offer her a Xanax? Did Bridget feel like slipping a Xanax into Tamla's gumbo might calm her down? It was also said by a few women and Leander that Tamla was the type to speak her mind. He even wondered if something political might have been brought up and maybe Tamla got into an altercation with someone over something. Their political views were completely different. Leander's friend, Stephen Reynolds, was interviewed by the GBI, and he told them that there were 2 swinger couples at the party, but they were never questioned about that at all. So the GBI either just assumed that it was a rumor and didn't even ask them, or what? There's no record of any of these questions ever being asked to the 2 couples that were supposedly these swingers. Another thing nobody was ever asked that I find interesting is, was anyone into Tam? Male or female? Was anyone crushing on her? They all had a lot of good things to say about her. I don't even know Tom, and it sounded like he was a little sweet on her, you know, maybe a little schoolboy crush on her. There were a lot of questions that were not asked or pressed. Bridget is crackable, in my opinion. It is clear that the Xanax that was found in Tam's system came from Bridget's prescription, but multiple women had access to Bridget's prescription, so any one of them could have slipped her the Xanax. There is absolutely no justifiable source of Xanax other than Bridget's supply, in my opinion. We're looking, in my opinion, the very least at negligent homicide or involuntary manslaughter, because if the cause of death was ruled to be from a fall due to intoxication of a woman who can hold her liquor, 0.23 isn't that high. It's high for the average person, yes, but it's not that high for someone who drinks tequila regularly. And I'm not trying to insinuate that Tamla had an alcohol problem, because I do not think that she did at all. What I'm saying is she grew up drinking, and she was also drinking it with water. Also, a 0.23 is nowhere near as high as it would be if she had consumed almost an entire bottle of tequila to herself, which is what these people want you to believe. Because when they found that bottle, there was only 1/8 of tequila left in it. So either someone else was drinking it with her, or they dumped it out to make it look like she drank more than she did. Because if you drink an entire 1/5 of tequila, you are going to have much higher alcohol content than 0.23, and you're going to be acting drunk. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a seasoned drinker. You are going to be acting drunk. I do not believe that she drank damn near an entire bottle of tequila to herself. So maybe they dumped some of it out to make it look like she drank more than she did. They said that they passed the bottle around to smell it. Jose would know to tell them that, because all their prints would then be on the bottle. So it wouldn't be like no one could say that they didn't touch it, just in case they had. Meaning, whoever else drank from it. I really find it hard to believe that nobody else had any of that tequila. Jose also told about touching the cigarettes and the lighter, and I feel like this is to put his prints on it, because maybe that's not where he found them originally. All I know is there's an awful lot of lying going on, an awful lot of inconsistency, and an awful lot of people covering each other's asses. And I just cannot ignore the Xanax. It is the Xanax for me. The Xanax came from Bridget's supply. It is my opinion, but it doesn't make sense that it came from anybody else. But Bridget says she didn't give it to her. In Jean's second GBI interview, Jean talked about she didn't know if Bridget maybe kept some in her purse in a bottle, or if she only had it around her neck at the party. Insinuating what, Jean? That Tamla stole it out of Bridget's purse? Or Maybe you think someone else may have stolen it out of Bridget's purse and slipped it to Tamla. They all lied. Bottom line, they all lied. They're all a bunch of liars. Stacey had a different reason for Tamla to be late than anyone else's reason. Stacey had a story about Tamla being in a gang back in Miami and having a troubled past, none of which was true. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. I'll wait. Whether it was an accident or a homicide or an accidental OD, I don't know. But none of those have been proven without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. And just like it hasn't been proven that there wasn't a homicide, it hasn't been proven that it was an accident. How can you close a case, an investigation, with so many unanswered questions and unasked questions? Unfortunately, because the scene wasn't properly secured or preserved, and the evidence was not taken into consideration, such as cigarette butts, drinks, fingernail scrapings. No one was looked over to see if anyone had any injuries, suggesting that there was an altercation. We can't go back in time and get that. It's gone. And we have no photographs to prove or disprove anything either. Very convenient. I said in my first video that I feel like a third autopsy needs to be done, because the two autopsies that we have here are drastically different, in my opinion. I mean, maybe not drastically, but they're pretty different as far as severity of injury. I mean, one says she had a broken neck and one doesn't. One says she has head injuries and the other doesn't. Like, which is it? One says that she didn't even have a compound fracture. She had a dislocated wrist, yet there's a picture of a bone sticking straight out right here. Mike Christian asked about Tamla being cremated while questioning one of the women. And I can't remember if it was Bridget or if it was Madeline, but he asked questions about whether or not Tamla was being cremated, and that's what he heard, and that he was wondering if that was true. Where did he hear that? Because she was not cremated, and it's almost like he was hoping that she would be. Like, he knew another autopsy was coming. Mike Christian was really worried about being blamed for the scene that was set up by Jose and other deputies that arrived before him. I believe Mike Christian believes that this was an accident that was covered up. Once he realized what was going on, he wanted nothing to do with it, and he did his best to keep information from getting out, including not asking certain questions and not taking certain evidence. That's what I think. That's my theory. Now, Mandy that we talked about, that told about Mike Christian with the text messages and sending the photos. Apparently, Mike Christian did this. He was a little bit of a wanderer. So he was kind of cheating on his wife with a couple women. And all of those women got phone calls, texts, and crime scene photos. And not just of Tamla. This was like a routine of his. That was his flex. Like, he's like, look at me, like, I'm at this crime scene, check this out. And I guess one of the things that he said to Mandy, sent a picture and said, does this look like an accident to you? So he never thought, according to Mandy. Now, he, to defend himself, says, she was pissed. She's like a scorned woman. I ended up working things out with my wife. So I cut things off with Mandy and the others, and now Mandy's pissed, and that's why she's saying this. I don't know. Internal Affairs got into it. Mandy says her phone was completely smashed, and Mike was fired. So, well, actually, he resigned after the investigation by Internal Affairs was opened up. And I'm assuming it was after they saw Mandy's phone, which is why I believe Mandy. Anyway, what do you guys think? We're gonna move on now. I've already been working on the Idaho 4 case, so that is going to be the next video that I do. I'm very, very close to finishing that up, and I will get it to you as soon as possible. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. If I don't see you before then, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and feel free to comment below. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.